you have any kind of update on the injured guys, AJ, DeVonta?
Yeah, the guys obviously that are in the concussion protocol. I won't comment on that. They're working hard to get back. The other guys, you guys will have an injury report later today. We'll see how that goes. We're doing a walkthrough today. Um, you know, just with how we came out of the game, and just what's best for these guys' bodies at this particular point. And we'll have a good, tough practice tomorrow.
3-game sample size on Quinyon on the outside. What's he look like in your opinion? And I guess you're going to keep him there, it would seem.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, we have ability to be flexible with the different pieces that we have back there, so you never know. As far as just how he's done, and I think he's done a nice job. I think he's made some good plays on the football. I think he's, we told you guys from the beginning, very very confident and not phased by anything, and he gets to go against two really good receivers and our entire receiving core actually every day at practice. So I think that's really prepared him. And then what those deep balls that he's been getting hands on, those are obviously big plays. They count for PBUs for Q, but had they catch those are explosive plays for the offense. So those are huge plays, and he's done a nice job. That was a really good one on the double move on the third down that he made the play on 22 on the last game. So he's done a nice job. And again, it's just the moment's not too big for him. I think that speaks a lot to the character of Q. That he's just same guy every day, just working to get better and not over, doesn't make the big deal about the moment. He's just in the moment of where he is.
Kellen talked about how the collaborative play calling process was nothing new to him. You've been in an offensive coordinator and a head coaching spot. What have you learned as a head coach leading the collaborative process and how that led into this year?
Football, I talk about football being the ultimate team game a lot, and how much my passion for football is because it takes everybody. And I talk about that a lot in the sense of how games go with the players on the field. Well, that's the same thing as in organizations and on coaching staffs, right? It's the greatest team sport there is because it not just takes the players and the coaches, it takes the front office, it takes everybody in the building, it takes everybody, and that's no different in a coaching staff. It takes everybody. There's different guys that have different assignments that you give them throughout each week. Kellen has a couple different ways that he does some things as far as how he splits up who has red zone, who has third down, who has this, but it's just that's what's so cool about football is the collaborative effort and that it is a true team game and that you cannot be great without the greatness of others. And again, that holds true in every aspect of football, not just on the field, but also on the coaching staff.
I know an important part of a coach's job is to figure out how guys respond to different kinds of coaching, like who responds to hard coaching. In year 2, what have you learned about Jalen Carter, how to best get to him?
Yeah, I think every bit of coaching starts with, first and foremost, that you can help the player get better. And so that's important that you hire coaches that you feel like can get the players better, and you as the coach, whether the coordinator or the head coach, can help the player get better. And then it's that building that relationship from that and having a relationship. I think when you have a relationship with somebody, you can coach them hard. You can coach them. You can coach them not as hard, I guess to say. But I think there's always a feel in that for coaching, like when to put the I don't know, when to go hard on it. Coach, I'll say it as a guest, when to put your foot on the gas and when to tap it or whatever. And that's not a great analogy. I'm sorry, but there's different ways you handle it. But I think it all first and foremost starts with the relationship. And so Jalen, what I'm really proud of Jalen is that he had adversity the week before and he responded from that adversity. And there were different styles of coaching, and sometimes it's, hey, you be the bad cop this time, I'll be the good cop. And so I just think that, again, it starts with that relationship and the fact that you can get them better. And then, once they know that, then it's just always about how do you get the player better, and that's just been my experience as a coach. But again, every guy's treated different. Every guy is. Let me say it this way: the standard is what it is, and everybody is held to that standard. But you might not. There's different ways of how you get different guys to the standard, and then there's there's different situations of how you handle different guys playing to the standard.
And when it comes to offensive play calling, philosophically speaking, do you favor having plays called dictated on what the defense is doing, or you dictating to the defense to respond to what you are doing?
Yeah, there's a little bit of both of that, Jeff. I think that's a good question. Sometimes, you want to dictate to the defense to try to get them in certain things. Doing different things as far as, I'm not going to get into that, but but then there's also times where, you have to react. I think that's the thing about playing quarterback. You have to react to what the defense does. You're trying to dictate to them, but you have to throw it to the open guy. You have to, different things like that. The offensive line has to react to the set that they, the look that they give you to know what type of blocking scheme you're doing. And so I think it's a little bit of both and, because again, if you're saying I'm just going to dictate to them, and then you don't run the appropriate blocking scheme toward it, I think this is the easiest way to say it. If you don't run the appropriate blocking scheme towards it, you won't pick up whatever it is, the rush by the front or the blitz. And so I think it's definitely a both and.
Nick, the passing yards across the league through 3 weeks anyway are down, like the lowest they've been since at least 2000. The rushing yards, are on the way up. Is anything that you have seen that sort of speaks to the why of that?
Yeah, it's still early with the sample size. Obviously, our numbers reflect that a little bit as well. Our rushing numbers are up. Now we've been high in the rushing over the past couple years, but again. Yeah, I just think it's too early to say that quite yet, because we've definitely looked at that and studied that, because you spend all your time focusing on the next opponent, but we have actually broke it off and said what is happening across the league. And I just think right now the sample size is just not high enough, but it is something that we looked into, because it is noticeable, and it is a really big difference, but we'll continue to monitor that. And what we're trying to do, though, is, be efficient on offense, hit your explosive plays, take care of the football. Those things will never change, not give up sacks. Those things will never change of what we're trying to do as far as explosives, taking care of the football, not giving up sacks.
Nick, is there anything that surprised you about Saquon since you've seen him in person these last couple months?
Man, yeah. I mean, there's so many different things when you see a cut in person. When he's on your team, for whatever reason, when he's on your team, it just, I don't know. I can tell you how many times I've just really shook my head man, that was an unbelievable cut. And it's like he's making these cuts at 230 pounds. Oh, on top of that, he's making these cuts at 4.3 speed like that. And these guys, who's like him? You know what I mean? It's so it's you're seeing it just it's just really cool to see him. And again, I always will go back to everyone. You guys all see the plays that he makes, but what a teammate he is. He works his butt off. He's a great teammate, and I can't say enough good things about him. I think those are the things, Rube, that you really see is, again, the cut for his elusiveness first and foremost. But then the size and the speed at which he's making those cuts is what make it so impressive.
I don't think for 2+ years that the passing game is built around AJ and DeVonta. If they're down
In Dallas.
I'm sorry, you're right. If they're down, is it functionally a different offense, or is it reasonable to say next man up in those cases?
You always are going to say next man up, but you still don't say next man up. You have to do this. That's just not good coaching, right? You can't next man up, but you have to do exactly what this guy does. Again, that's not feasible. It's not. Everyone has their strengths and everybody has their weaknesses, and you try to help these guys as much as you possibly can play to their strengths. And so there are and so again, it's a both and, right? It's hey, I know you do this really well, and AJ does this really well, so you can take this, or, and sometimes I've told you guys before too, it's by, hey, if we're going to try to run this particular route, it's by committee. Like, it might be Dallas in this one, or Jahan on this one, or Smitty on this one, I'm speaking to when AJ's been out, because he's been out for 2 weeks. And so that's kind of how that goes. Again, our job is to help put the players in positions to succeed against the defense they're running against, but also first and foremost, about what they do well. I think that when you think about what plays you're going to run, you always think about what your players do well first. Then you get into, what you're playing against, does it fit? And then you try to do some different things to hide it with formations, personnel groupings, motions, etc.
Nick, as you get ready to face the Bucs defense again, do you think the offense is in a better spot to be able to handle the blitz better?
Say that one more time.
As you get ready to face the Bucs again, their defense, do you think your offense is in a better position?
We've worked really hard at this, obviously, for the past year, and we've done a good job so far. But you're only as good as your next game. So excited about the challenge. I know Jalen's really played well against the blitz these last couple games, and he's worked his butt off on it. And just excited about the challenge, but we know there's going to be challenges against Todd Bowles' coach defense. So, again, we've done a nice job so far, but you're only as good as your next game.
Coming out of Dotson for a few weeks now, what do you view as his strengths as a player?
Yeah, I think he's got great hands. I think that's when you go back and even look at when we look at all our stuff, everything, you watch all the stuff. You go back and look at your notes of what you thought of him coming out, and I think that's the thing I wrote the most is like, man, he catches everything. He catches everything. He catches everything. And then he's just got this great ability to get in and out of breaks. I think DeVonta has this great ability to get in and out of breaks, and they remind me of each other as far as at the top of the route of how they get out of how they can transition from full speed back down the stem or changing directions. And so those are the things that really pop up, and as I see with Jahan, just this unbelievable ability to catch the ball wherever it is, and we've seen that in practice, and then also just the shiftiness.
Coming out
Two more,
of
please.
The Atlanta game, I don't think anybody was happy, especially defensively at the end of the game. Is there one or two things you can give us about unique about Vic coming out of that game and being able to turn that thing around so quickly?
Well, again, it's just not an accident when you're a top-tier defensive coordinator for decades of the NFL. 21 years, I think, is that what it is? And so it's sometimes it's like a quarterback that's played 15 years. They've seen everything. They know what the answers are to get to, and the different things, the different buttons to push against different looks. And so, again, I got so much faith in him and the defensive staff. He calls a great game, and so I think that's what you see is that knowledge of all the different things that he's seen throughout the years. Again, I've said this before, like his experience. This is the first time as a head coach that I've had the experience of Vic. Jonathan was a first year coordinator. And so was Sean. And so the first time I've had that experience that Vic brings, and so he's just seen so much football.
Follow up from the collaborative process earlier, taking a step back in the offensive game planning is probably part of what you wanted to improve about the collaboration. What did you learn in the past year about when to pick your spots with offensive coordinators?
Yeah, I'm still in there, and still, I think, in the past, it's been kind of going through the game plan and saying, hey, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and then in these scenarios, sitting in there listening a little bit more, not running the ship as far as like, hey, I'm driving, we're gonna talk about this. I'll lead the direction of the conversation. It's more now. I'm sitting passenger seat, listening to the conversation, adding my information. Again, I'm not going to be shy to say, hey, here's what I think in this scenario, or here's what I think in that scenario. But it is more, I'm letting Kellen drive the car, and just like my wife will say, to me, hey, make sure you take a right here or left here. She's giving me directions. I'm gonna, same thing in these scenarios. Is just chiming in when I have something to chime in. being able to step out when I need to step out and letting everybody else be able to participate. Not participate because everybody's participating. That's not the right way to say it. But it is just, just not having to put all the tapes together, all those different things like that, which has been freed me up to do other things, but still be able to say, hey, take a look at what we did. I mean, this was a conversation last week. Take a look at what we did in 2020 against Houston, at Indy in this game, on this particular play versus this particular look. How do we think that looks against this? And so, again, the same deal, like Kevin Patullo has a ton of experience. I have a ton of experience. Kellen has a ton of experience. And that, again, is the great thing about football. And that's really the great thing about life is you don't have to go through this by yourself, and you get to get together. Like, one person coming up with one thing can't do what 4 people do together, 5 people do together, 6 people do it together, right? That's what makes it a great team game, and you lean on everybody. I've talked to you about how I've learned a lot from Kellen, and I'm sure Kellen's learned a lot from us as well. And that's how you grow as a coach. That's how you grow as a person. Is other people. None of us have all the answers. None of us. And I think that's what's cool. The cool part about football.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.